Gerald, Melvin and the Blue Notes, The Love I Lost on Bristol's One Love Breakfast. Good morning, how are you? It's 7 minutes past 9 o'clock. Slight change in format this morning. We got George Ferguson, elected mayor, in studio alongside myself, Kaz, Lucy. No, sorry. I keep forgetting your name, love. I'm really sorry. Just look like a Lucy.
I'm not going to play this game anymore.
We've got Prim here as well, and on answering the phones as well is Matthew Tosh. So if you've got a comment, Bristol 955 3721. We know all the Twitter stuff is at One Love Brecky. Our hashtag this morning is OLB George. Okay, and you can text 60777. Start your text with BCFM hyphen Ujima. George Ferguson, good morning. How you doing? You all right?
I'm very good, Pat.
Good. Arrived with your high vis on your bike, just almost like I'm thinking, hang on a minute, it's 8 to 9. He's early, because normally you're kind of like from one meeting to the next, and you're arriving literally to the second. So can we have a round of applause, please? He actually arrived on time this morning. Well done, that's mine. Hey!
But I nearly always arrive on time, just on time.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to keep people nervous.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm nervous. No, don't be like that. Now listen, we've had an unprecedented response in terms of questions for you. We also sent Kaz out and about on the streets just to ask people their views about our elected mayor, George Ferguson. And it's quite amusing because we've just seen an article in the Bristol Post. Many are accusing the Bristol Post of being your unofficial campaign manager because they're full of positive stories for you, which is good.
I've not noticed that.
Have you not?
No, absolutely not.
Oh.
If you weigh it up and look at, it's certainly not my support paper.
Okay. Well, look. We're grateful that you've come because many of our regular listeners will know I'm always harping on, moaning about you, saying he's always at the BBC. He always tends to fall over into White Ladies Road and he doesn't come here enough. So we're pleased that you're here. So we're going to try and get in as much as we can in this hour, George. So, as I say, thanks for being here.
Well, I love coming here.
Good. Now, first of all, we asked Kaz to go to a variety of places. She went to a mixture of Ashton, St Paul's and also Cabot Circus and Southfield, just to find out people's thoughts on George Ferguson. So,
my name is Anne Burke. I live in Freezywood Road, which is just off North Street. I've been living in Bristol for 2 years now. I do see him as a very creative figure. I admire how he has supported the arts and creativity within the city, and that has helped Bristol come on masses in its reputation in the arts world and culture.
Hello, my name's Farrell Findlay. I know that George Ferguson has put quite a lot of ideas through to become the mayor of Bristol, and it doesn't seem like many of them have happened, and also it seems like a lot of things that people didn't want to happen has happened.
My name is Jasmine. I'm from Eastville. I think George Ferguson it's got a very good business mind for Bristol, but personally I feel like I don't have anything in common with him necessarily. He doesn't necessarily represent me in the way that I'd expect a mayor to represent me as part of Bristol.
I'm Sherry and I'm from Horfield area in Bristol, and if I'm honest, I think George Ferguson is slightly out of touch with people's opinions.
My name's Tia and I'm from Montpellier, and I don't know much about George Ferguson at all. I just know he likes his bikes.
Hi, my name is Sibs. I'm residing now towards St. Agnes. He is misunderstood. He has already put across his 5-year plan on exactly the key things that he will be focusing on. As someone who has already made himself clear, I think people that have not read his 5-year plan and they have what they think he should be doing, but that's not what he already said. He's not addressing that. He can't address something that's not in his plan. So once you have aligned yourselves with what he has written, I think that will make a better sense.
There you go. So pretty balanced, actually, in terms of reaction. How do you feel about the reaction you heard, George, first of all?
Well, I think I've got to connect with people more than I do. And more than any other leader has done. And funny enough, there's just been some research come out of both universities that says that Bristol is really benefiting from the high profile of its leadership now in a way that is never done before. That I think that comes out today. So there's no doubt there's been a huge change. People wouldn't have been talking about the leader of Bristol in previous years because they wouldn't have known who it was in general. And that is benefiting the city. But I have an enormous amount of question and answer sessions, radio, I tweet a lot, I walk around the city, I cycle around the city. I can't meet all 435,000 people in a week, but I do my best to engage with as many people as possible. And all I'm doing, I've got a big picture. Somebody referred to a 5-year plan. I have a big picture. And a lot of the things that irritate people are a necessary part of making us a healthier, more livable, more friendly city that is a good one for our children to grow up in. And I just ask people to buy into that and recognise that sometimes there are some little sacrifices that had to be made in the short term in order to achieve the long-term picture. But
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay, George. It's going to be, November, 2 years, virtually. Still a lot of people have got a lot to say, and you're absolutely right, because you're out and about, you're on the radio, you're on the TV, you're in the papers, more and more people get to know about you. They hear about particular projects, they'll agree or disagree, and it's been well documented in papers like the Bristol Post and others, and some national as well, about a campaign against you, some of the stuff that you found offensive and upsetting as well, and we'll kind of try and deal with that in a little while. I want to clear up just a couple of things. When you ran for mayor, we know, I haven't got the exact figures, but it wasn't particularly a massive amount of people that voted in this city. I think for you it was about 38,000 people who voted for you. And Marvin, I think it was 31,000, 32,000. Is that roughly
Something like
about?
that. It was around
right.
that, yes.
Okay. So we know that a lot of people didn't get involved in terms of voting. So I've always turned around and said, come on, if you don't get involved and vote, then you should be quiet if you didn't be part of that process. So that's one area. The other side is, what were you a member of before you actually came into, or before the result was there? You were a Liberal Democrat at one stage, is that right?
I was a Liberal councillor in the 70s.
Okay.
And I left the council in 1979. I knew I wasn't going to do it for long. I did it for 6 years, which when I was a young, was virtually a kid.
Yeah.
That was a long time. It was an amazing experience. But the Liberals in those days, you've got to bear in mind that you could get the whole of the Parliamentary Liberal Party into the back of a cab in those days.
So
it was almost like being an independent. And I got really fed up with the way national politics had seeped into local government. And while I did, because I tend to be quite a loyal character, I did stay a member of the Lib Dems for a very long time.
Sure.
I felt that it was completely inappropriate that we had allowed national politics to pull the strings of local government. So when the opportunity came for us to have a mayor, I thought this must be an independent mayor.
So how long were you before you stood? Did you resign from membership of the Lib Dems?
I did when the when the idea of having a mayor for Bristol came up, because I felt that a mayor should be an independent mayor, and I had not been taking any active part in politics since the 1980s.
Sure.
None at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's only because you get comments, and it's important just to hear it from you. Just to.
Well, who am I strongest opposition on the city council by a long streak?
Yeah.
is certainly members of the Lib Dems.
That's right.
Who are extremely destructive about many things. Actually, I find it really disappointing that they, while I'm implementing many of their policies in terms of some of their transport policies, they are the ones who are doing most of the naysaying.
Okay. Isn't Simon Cook a Lib Dem? Is he a Lib Dem?
Yes, and he's excellent. And what is absolutely brilliant is that we've got...
So who's the destructive ones then? Not him?
No. There's a little gang of four that is led by their leader.
All right.
And they just don't seem to have a positive word to say. Well, there are some really good people in every party, and what is brilliant now, and this is another huge advantage of having an independent mayor, is that I've got a cabinet of 5 people from 4 different political parties. They're very cohesive. We work really well together. I absolutely rely on them, and it's an effective way of governing the city.
Okay. Now, you were a merchant venturer. I just want to, and I need very quick answers. You ceased to be one, I guess, when you were elected. Number one, what is a merchant venturer, for those that don't know, and why were you a member of them, and are you still, or did you resign?
I resigned, but the Merchant Venturers are an organisation that has a pretty dodgy history in terms of its some of its past and certainly its connection with slavery. But it turned itself around in this century and the last to being one that gives back to Bristol, and they are generally successful business people, but also leaders in education and other areas of public service. And I wasn't there because I was a rich man, because I'm not, whatever anybody thinks, but because I'm somebody who tries to make this a better city, and that's what they do. They're putting loads and loads into education, into care for the elderly and other areas. So I know that Conspiracy Tony likes to have a go at them, conspiracy theorist Tony Gosling, but the fact is there's nothing secretive about it, and they are putting loads of good causes into the city for no other reason that they believe in the city.
So in many ways then, from what you've just said, and I've got to stand for Tony Gosling on our politics show, and I'm not going to repeat, he's got his own...
Tony and I have lively conversations about it, and he loves to, he drags this up all the time. It's old news, and it's not...
But what I'm saying is,
really relevant.
From what you're saying in terms of being formerly a merchant venturer, still very close and in contact with these people. So would that mean, apart from officially being a member of them, are you still involved? You still meet with them? Are there people that have a plan for Bristol that you share? And your critics will say, well, he's in the pockets of the merchant venturers. People like John Savage and others. People will always have comments to say, well, George is actually working with them. He's officially resigned, but really he's one of them.
No, but if the merchant venturers didn't exist, I'd be bumping into these same people, because they are the people who...
Do you meet with them?
They are people who are movers and shakers in the city. You take John Savage as an example. He's somebody who's done a tremendous amount of good for the city. I don't think anybody could find any damage he's done to the city. He's been a visionary guy who's worked to bring business and public service together in the city in a way that's been really good for it. So I think it's such an easy thing to knock, and and if I didn't have the courage to defend them, it would be an easy thing for me just to join the knocking. But I don't think that would be fair, because generally they are good people. But I don't meet them any more than anybody else that plays a part in the city.
No, you've answered that.
But I really admire people who are prepared to be active citizens. That's what I'm looking for. Is people
I've got to ask the questions.
questions.
I would say that's what I'm paid to do. I'm a volunteer. It's community radio.
But I mean, I love Tony. He's hilarious, but he's also, he loves to come up with any conspiracy that's on the planet.
But I also think it's important that broadcasters like Community Radio, we come up with stuff that isn't often reported. We were only talking this morning about Ebola, for example, and we were talking about how underreported, not just for this Ebola outbreak, but for other humanitarian outbreaks across the world. Countries like Cuba have been so instrumental in sending record numbers of doctors to places like that. But the West, the BBC, Britain and America don't report these things. And I think people like Tony Gosling are so important for that. Yeah. Listen, let me move on.
I say I've raised the profile of Cuba doing this? Sure. I mean, Cuba is a fantastic country that people misunderstand. Because of the oppression it's had from the States, it has had to really fight its way. And yet its record on education and health is way above the States. And they're very generous with it in when there are disasters. And I've spent time in Cuba. I cycled across Cuba for charity, and I got to know Cubans very well. And I think that they are deeply misunderstood as a nation.
Okay, thank you. Finally, in terms of our membership and stuff, and I don't really know what this is. Right, are you? This is from Leroy in Easton. Are you a Common Purpose graduate, whatever that is? First of all, can somebody refresh me?
Common Purpose is an organisation that brings people out of their jobs to give them a leadership course, and it does an amazing job right across industry and public service, and it brings people out, and so that they can learn off each other and learn off successful people. No, I'm not a Common Purpose graduate, but I've taken part in the Common Purpose course in courses, because I think that it is one that enables people who might not otherwise have the chance to get into positions of leadership.
The second part of the question is, do you believe the amount of people in leadership positions across Bristol that are CP graduates is democratic? So I guess this question is suggesting that it's almost like some kind of big, Bilderberg secret, a lot of meeting of the great and the good in Bristol. I don't know.
No, it's not at all. No, absolutely. The whole point of Common Purpose is give the opportunity to people who wouldn't have the opportunity of leadership, who might be stuck under a glass ceiling, and this enables them to break through it. So it's absolutely about spreading leadership, and I think it is.
So it's not secretive or elitist in that sense.
Common Purpose, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. It's I can't remember whether it's a charity. I think it's a charity, but if not, it's a social enterprise.
It's a charity.
It is a charity,
and political parties support,
and it does wonderful work, and it does bring together the experience that people have got with the talent that sometimes would otherwise not flower.
Okay, George, I've got a question. This is from Jasmine.
My question for George is, with all of the money that's being poured into Stokes Croft and a lot of the massively cultural hubs of Bristol, what's going to be done about the people that are homeless and on the streets? Because a lot of the places where they are now, like in Stokes Croft, they've been pushed out of the area. They don't have anywhere to go anymore, and it's sort of like the problem's been pushed away to somewhere else. What's going to be done to focus on that issue and protect those people?
Thank you, Jasmine. George?
Well, I've set up a charity called the Mayor's Fund that deals solely with homelessness. At the moment, it will have different it'll cover different issues, because I see this as a really, really important issue, Jasmine. The money that you say has been spent at Stokes Croft has not been public money. It has just been the vitality of St Paul's and Stokes Croft has turned it into a really attractive area that people want to be in, and that must be a good thing. Interestingly, St Mungo's, who are our partner in dealing with homelessness, happen to have their base near Stokes Croft in Bristol, and so do many of the other homelessness charities have bases around the St Paul's and inner city area where the problem is most prevalent. It's something that relatively wealthy cities and relatively comfortable cities tend to attract a greater level of homelessness than others, which is an irony and one that we must deal with. Brighton is the other city with a very, very high level of homelessness, and nobody would say that was one of the poorest cities in the UK.
And recently,
so we are working very closely. We've got some excellent people, both
we've
within the city
retweeted this
council.
number as well, haven't we? That you were pushing as well in terms of if you find somebody that is homeless, that there is a particular number you can call.
Have you got the number on you? Because I haven't got it.
We will find it.
But everybody is invited to play a part. I was talking just now about active citizens. Everybody is relevant in this. I mean, I'm communicating with somebody who's camping out at the moment.
Sure.
It's not always as simple as it seems. Sometimes people are more difficult to help because they just don't or seem not to want to be helped, but they need to be helped.
Well, it's not that question of someone just being homeless. There are things that lead to it.
Absolutely.
And so it's not like saying, hey, here's somewhere to stay, because actually people are already disconnected and they've got issues.
We've got a huge programme with Second Step, who deal particularly with people with mental illnesses and
they make programmes here for us.
And Second Step are absolutely wonderful, and they've together with us as partners have won a major lottery bid in order to deal with this. So it's not all about Stokes Croft, it's about the whole city.
Okay,
and
I've got the number, George.
Everybody must play a part, and here is Pat with the number.
Thank you. He's trying to get my job. 0300 500 0914. Lines are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's StreetLink and it's free phone 0300 500 914. We will be breaking.
Or Google StreetLink.
Brilliant. Okay, we will be breaking for the news in a little while. Now, George, before I've interviewed you before, I actually play some audio about. We spoke about the hall in Bristol that the Bristol Music Trust run, named after Edward Colston, after the street. And this is a question that connects to that in terms of black history.
My name is Julius Abraham. I live in St Paul's. My question to George Ferguson is, with all the contributions that black people have made to Bristol, I would like to see more statues, recognition and memorial pieces commemorating the contributions that black people have made to Bristol.
Thanks, Julius. George, reply to that?
Julius, I think that's a really positive approach to it. We've got Perrow's Bridge, which marks the famous slave Perrow down at Harbourside, and I think that
it's kind of hidden, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, you know, as a visitor, you wouldn't know that was Perrow's Bridge, and you wouldn't really know the history. And I think marking
big statue of Edward, though, isn't there?
Recently, I paid for the mayor's office paid for a plaque down at the bus station to celebrate the bus boycott, which was 1963, 2 years before I arrived in Bristol, and it's something that's always impacted on me as being an incredible campaign that was remarkably successful, led by Paul Stevenson. And do go down to the bus station and see the celebration of that. It's one of the best. It is the best plaque in Bristol. It's a beautiful bit of artwork.
Kind of 3D, isn't it?
And it's three-dimensional, and it's really great. And yes, I would like to carry on spinning those things out, Julius, but please realise that I was a anti-apartheid campaigner when I was young, and when that terrible that terrible thing was happening in South Africa. I was one of the people who probably screamed loudest when Mandela was freed, and it's something that is absolutely close to my heart,
George.
And so I think that positive approach, Julius, is exactly the right one that we should take.
It is very positive.
I'm very and I'm open to debate on the Colston Hall.
We've said this before, haven't we? You are open to debate. People say you can't change history, etc. But do you think, Green Capital 2015, all the great things where people are saying this city is diverse, etc., etc. Do you really think? I mean, you're our elected mayor. You've got some power in the sense that if you really wanted something to change, I know that you can't make it, or you say let's put it to a vote in Bristol or whatever. But do you not see, after all this talking to people and the education and the understanding from people, that can you not just make a quick phone call to Henry Kenyon? You know who he is, the chair of the Bristol Music Trust. Say, come on, Henry, really? Bristol Music Trust, change the name. You don't have to wait for money, and then that will be a little blight off our history, and we can move on. Leave the statue in town, just maybe put some shackles around the guy and a proper inscription to say what he was, and move on from there. Would you not consider doing that?
Well, I've never said let's have a vote on it. I don't think that's probably the right way, but I think that
you did. You said let the people decide once.
Well, yeah, but that is not having a vote. I'm not talking about having a referendum. I'm talking about having an adult discussion about all the issues, and it's not a simple one, but I absolutely
Why
understand.
Is it not simple, George?
Well, I think what I liked is Julius's very positive approach. What I would like, I think the solution to it is find somebody who would give 10 million to the Colston Hall and put their name on it.
That's
because we need the money.
Of course, we need the money, and it's a great and it's a great venue, and I'm not going to stop using it. But that it comes down to money, doesn't it? At the end of the day, do the right thing if you're paid.
Well, you won't have we won't have a Colston Hall unless we have the money.
But we've had one, yeah. But do you know?
We won't have a concert hall.
It shouldn't be conditional on somebody coming along with money. Shouldn't it be conditional on the Bristol Music Trust doing the right thing for the city?
Pat, I have to be strategic about these things. I don't think we'll change the name twice in the next 10 years.
Okay. All right, there's your answer. It's 9:30. We're going to take the news very shortly. We're going to have a question first now. RPZs, you knew it would come up, didn't you? Okay.
I'd have been surprised if it hadn't. I just hope it doesn't dominate the whole of the hour.
No. Hopefully not, if we can get through it quickly.
Hello, George. The residents' parking zone in St Paul's has been amended, and the one in Clifton. Are there any plans for the residents' parking zone in Ashton to be amended, please?
Really quick answer on that, because we've got more.
We amend them all as they go along, and that's the whole point of the process. People criticise me of a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's absolutely not. It's a very flexible approach according to the character of the area, and then we review after 6 months and go back to the Department for Transport with applications to change it in accordance with the experience that we've had.
Here's the next one.
But we have to move on with it.
The residents' parking zone in St Paul's has been amended, and the one in Clifton. Are there any plans for the
Same one, sorry.
Same question.
parking zone in
I'm
Ashton
based
in
in St Paul's area. My question for George is one that keeps on coming up when I'm out and about within the local community, and that's the residents' parking scheme. A lot of people are saying that you're just, again, hitting the poor because they've got to pay now for their parking, and that your reason stroke excuse, which says you don't want other people coming in and just using the parking as a means of getting parking free, is wearing a bit thin. So I just wondered, how are you going to appease the people, the good people of St Paul's, and whether you're going to take up what the Morgan Street campaigners are saying, and that is to actually, they don't want this.
Well, we'll see how the Morgan Street thing plays out. I don't think that Morgan Street can go on being free parking for long. But
Why is that?
I'm not going to force the issue. I'm just telling you that.
Okay.
I said at the beginning of this programme, we've got to look at the bigger picture. Bristol is getting clogged up with cars. It is getting bad air quality. It's going to affect our children and old people's lives, all our lives, if we don't.
George,
deal with it.
you say it's getting bad air quality, but I mean, even by the independent surveys, there are only 2 areas in Bristol that say that air quality is any worse because of an impact on vehicles. So a lot of the areas where there are RPZs, the evidence just doesn't stack up.
No,
so
at least 40% of the air quality issues are to do with vehicles.
According to which report? Because we've struggled to find those. We're looking at independent research.
We've just held an air quality summit in Bristol over the last couple of days. We've had people from all over Europe, and
is that going to be published?
And elements of that, obviously, it will be published. Yes,
sure.
But what is absolutely clear is that poor air quality is affecting people's lives. People are dying earlier in this city because of it.
Yeah.
Many more people are dying because of it than accidents on the road, which are much more visible. The thing is about air quality is it's invisible. So that's one driving factor. The other is you talk about the cost. Well, the cost is less than £1 a week, and people spend more than £1 a week driving around looking for parking spaces. When you've got a residence parking scheme, it is so much easier to move around. It's easier to find a parking space when you're a resident. All residents told me that.
Blue badge holders. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Apparently, it's at your discretion. But even in London, blue badge holders are able to park. These are disabled people that are being bashed already.
Blue badge holders are able to park. There's a load of nonsense that's being spread around.
So this is important then. So what you're saying is if you are a disabled badge holder, you can park in those RPZ zones.
No, you can't park in the residence parking unless it's a disabled parking space. But you can park in all the ticketed areas and on the and yellow lines without the markings on the pavements. So there are. This whole thing about blue badge holders has been a storm in a teacup, because when I talk to blue badge holders, the actual operation is quite different. Their actual experience is very different to the PR that's been put out by the people who are basically anti-residence parking and using it as a whip to thrash me with. And of course it's effective because we care deeply about disabled. I'm extremely lucky as an ex-polio victim to not be in a wheelchair myself, and I take a real exception to those who think that I don't care about that. I care deeply about it, and I think about access all the time. But the fact is, we are monitoring it, but the experience so far is that blue badge holders are not being disadvantaged.
Okay, well, we've got blue badge holders that are saying that they are. In places like London, blue badge holders can park, including in the residence areas.
Only in one or two of the boroughs in London.
Yeah. No, more than one or two, George.
No, you're absolutely wrong. It is not. It's not prevalent throughout London.
Just really quickly,
it's not prevalent throughout London. There are one or two. There are one or two boroughs that do go further than the recommendations. We are absolutely in line with the national recommendations that are accepted by virtual.
Prem, I want to bring you in really quickly. Yeah.
Right. I'm a blue badge holder, George, and I can tell you from experience, I'm in London all the time, and there are lots of places that I can park that have residence parking zones where I'm allowed. The meters that you have erected, particularly because I frequent St. Paul's, the meters actually have an allocation for blue badge holders, but the traffic wardens aren't aware of this. When is that confusion going to be cleared up?
Well, I mean, that is a matter of training of traffic wardens. I'm surprised that they're not aware of it, but the fact is the system does make very good allowance of blue badge holders. And I'm already, I'm always ready to listen. But what I'm not going to do is listen to basically a propaganda that has been put out by those who are absolutely against the residents' parking.
George, this is important.
This as an issue.
I want to move on and get these done. This certainly are not. These are one of Breakfast listeners of Ujima Radio, BCFM Radio, Community Radio, who I grant are different listeners to.
Yeah, but they're listening to this.
No, but what I'm trying to say to you,
there's been a trumped up one.
They're different listeners to those that will listen to BBC Bristol, who I think you will find are quite not representative of our city, and those 7 or 8 people that still read the Bristol Post, and write the letters. They're different people. These are real.
I don't think that's right, Pat.
People.
Everybody counts, and everybody.
Exactly.
I listen to all voices.
All right. So these are not propaganda.
I'm totally sympathetic with any blue badge holder who is finding a problem.
Okay.
But I absolutely know that we are following all the national guidelines in terms of what we're doing in residential areas. Now, what we will do,
otherwise we'll be dominated by RPZ.
What I promise we'll do is we'll review it after 6 months in every single scheme.
And I appreciate that they're going to change. That they may possibly change.
We iron out those difficulties.
Okay. Right. Al Nasir, this is on the same subject. He's saying 5 wards, and you have to correct me if this is wrong because I haven't got all the factual information. 5 wards sent in 1,553 emails, letters against resident parking zones, and only 142 of those were in favour during the official community consultation period. Therefore, only 8% supported it. Why is it going ahead, and why has it gone ahead if it is so clearly and extremely unpopular?
Well, I don't know where those figures came from. I've not seen those figures.
Okay, so those figures have come from Bristol City Council directly. 5
but I think what they've done is they must have been selective in their picking of the wards, but what has been absolutely clear is that when the residents' parking comes in, those figures turn around the other way.
Okay. Just getting the answer. Right. Finally, on RPZ, Sam from Horfield, what specific tangible measures are used to judge the success of RPZ? To go on gut feel, or people telling me, as you repeatedly do, he's saying, is unprofessional if you're going on a gut feel. Biased and anecdotal at best. What professional, measurable, tangible measures show whether an RPZ has been a success or failure? A pretty quick answer.
Well, there are 3 measures. One is the amount of traffic on the road and the reduction in commuters coming from outside the city clogging up our roads. The other is air quality measurement that we are increasingly good at. And the third is the satisfaction of the residents in those areas, which has proved to be extremely high.
Brilliant. All right, George, we're going to break for just a second, have some news, traffic and travel, then we're back live on the One Love Breakfast with our very own elected mayor, George Ferguson.
This is your award-winning One Love Breakfast, online and on your mobile. On BCFM 93.2 and Ujima 98. The information you need. Live from Inner City Bristol.
With the headlines, here's Susie Purdy.
Good morning, it's 9:40. £5.3 billion is being invested in a scheme across England to prevent unnecessary hospital visits and save the NHS money. The funding will employ around 18,000 social workers, therapists and other health professionals to create 7-day care, helping people stay healthy at home. In Bristol news, plans for a controversial biomass wood burning plant in Avonmouth has been recommended for approval. A decision over the power plant will go before councillors at a committee meeting next Wednesday. Residents fear the bioenergy facility would add dangerous toxins to the air in the residential areas, but the application states all key operational activities will take place in buildings or covered areas, and it will not affect air quality as pollutants would be well below the acceptable level. Also, campaigners are urging Downs Committee to permit the closure of Circular Road for 4 Sunday mornings in 2015. More than 3,000 people have signed a petition started by a group of families in North Bristol saying that the temporary closure of Circular Road would create a car-free loop of over 3 kilometres, which children of all ages can enjoy cycling with their families. Peter Abraham, the longest-serving member of the Downs Committee, said the idea of closing the road was unanimously rejected last month before the petition had started, but the committee may have to consider it again in the light of the number of of people supporting the petition.
Thanks very much indeed, Susie. On the roads, no major incidents to report. There was some heavy delays on the M32 that was southbound between Eastville and St Paul's. That's all settled down. And I'd like to say traffic's at a standstill because they're all listening to George, but it's flowing okay around the city at the moment. Let's go back to Susie for the weather.
Yeah, well, it's been a cloudy start this morning with mist and fog patches and occasional drizzle, but it is brightening up throughout the day and it will be quite mild, maximum temperatures of 18 degrees. That's it for your One Love update today. We're back again tomorrow.
The One Love Breakfast.
Thanks very much indeed, Susie Purdy there with news, traffic and travel. Now we're talking to George Ferguson, our elected mayor. We've got 18 minutes, not very long indeed, to continue. If you'd like to give your reaction on what George is saying, we're hoping to get Matthew Tosh in about 10 minutes' time. Bristol 955 3721 is our telephone number. Give us a call and you'll speak to Matthew Tosh, if indeed you can get through. You can tweet at OneLoveBrekky, BREKKY, with a hashtag OLBGeorge, and you can text 60777, sorry, text with BCFM, space Ujima, though we're not going to be able to ask any more of your questions. We've got loads and loads. George, how are you doing so far? You've had an easy ride so far, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's not easy, but I always enjoy the exchange. Okay. Never, ever do I shy off any exchange. Sure. Never do I fail to answer in some way or other.
George, what do you say to those people? While I'm getting my next question through, what do you say to those to those people that say, look, we love George, he's a charismatic guy and whatever, but if somebody disagrees with him, he just doesn't like it, and he's not really that interested in another opinion.
Absolutely, that couldn't be more further from the truth. I love opinions. I love debate. I love to react to what people want. But I've got to hold on to the bigger strategy of making quite sure we're a really good city. And of course, next year is European Green Capital.
Yep.
And by the way, I think that having the green and black debate was a really, really good one. That we have an opportunity to become one of the best cities in Europe, if not the world. And I think if we work together, we'll achieve that. But sometimes people will only see the thing on their doorstep and not see what's happening as relevant to this bigger picture of creating this healthier
It's not
city.
easy. It's not easy leading. It's really not. And anyone who's a leader will understand that. However, you're in that position and you are going to get... It's nice that people are debating these things. Right. Jim Totterdown, very quick answer to this. You could say it's a conspiracy theorist question or not. Have the traffic light sequences been shortened to heighten congestion in the city, therefore showing it as a benefit when the congestion charge is proposed? A lot of people talking about this. They're saying when the lights are not running and when lights are out or there's a power failure, the city's running beautifully and smoothly. And I must say, I've experienced that personally in and out of the city, and others are saying there are vested interests from big companies who will earn a contract when there is a congestion charge. Can you answer that, George?
The answer is no. I mean, we are certainly not fiddling the lights in order to create more traffic congestion.
Are you sure it was not you at 3 o'clock this morning playing with the lights on Cannon Street in Bedminster?
As a cyclist who actually stops at all red lights, I'm hardly going to be one who's going to try and make it more annoying.
Okay. Just checking. Here's a question about the buses.
Mr. Ferguson, I'd like to see if you could do something on reducing business rates for truly independent retailers that have got one store, not multiples, one store, whether you can do something to help our business rates.
Certainly not buses, business rates, small stores.
I'm totally with you. I'd love to do that. I mean, I think this is part of a bigger picture. We are incredibly centrally governed. We have rules that we have to abide by. There is a limit to the amount that we can subsidise rates for, and that actually is more than used up by charities and other organisations. Yes, I absolutely agree. What we do need is much greater local devolution so that we're able to make these both planning and financial decisions ourselves for the benefit of the city. And I'm hardly going to be one who's going to disagree with you about the importance of independent businesses. And, we are a wonderful independent city. People are coming all over the world to see what I'm talking about, because I do spend a lot of time selling Bristol to the rest of the world. And one of the great sales things is about our independence, is about our Bristol pound, is about the fact that we're a city with a huge variety of character and a great, I think, quite bolshy sense of independence.
Okay. how do you react to people? There's a question. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it describes your parking zones as somebody that says that they voted for you. They said, I'm not going to make this same mistake again. And they said next time they're going to vote for a candidate who promises to scrap, quote, your Nazi parking zones. How do you react to comments like that?
Well, I mean, that's a bit extreme. And, I mean, the irony is that the residence parking zones are not my policy. I'm pursuing them because I see them as being a vital part of making this a healthier city. And it's not about transport. It is about creating a civilized place, a place where you want to bring up your family. So, the use of terms like Nazi are not very helpful.
Okay. You're talking about a civilized place where people want to bring up their families. Latest figures, 28.7% of Bristol children in this city live in income-deprived households. In the year ending March 2014, over 8,500 people used a Trussell Trust food bank in Bristol. That's just the Trussell Trust ones. It was higher. Experts predict that this figure will be in excess, you ready for this, George, of 20,000 by March 2015. Does that really reflect a civilised city? 20,000 people by the end of March 2015 having to use a food bank. 28.7% of Bristol's children living in income-deprived households. Or is it more a case of those that have got the dosh being green and trendy and nice and enjoying Bristol, and those that haven't sinking further down into poverty?
No, I think.
How do you respond to that?
I think, Pat, you've heard me time and time again saying that when you're a relatively wealthy city, if you're poor, you're poorer because your housing is less affordable and the essentials of life become more difficult. And so I think it's the biggest issue that faces the city. It's one, I've been in post less than 2 years. You can't turn around a city in terms of equality and fairness.
But it's increasing under you, George.
Time. It's not increasing under me. It is.
No, but it is. I'm not blaming you.
Yeah. But I've explained that we are incredibly centrally governed, and there's limits. We are very limited in what we can do because the money is taken away from us, rather than us being able to retain the local taxation, which we would do if we were.
But when you went for election,
city.
You boasted that you had the mates and the contacts at Number 10 within government, that you could get a better deal for Bristol, and we're talking here about inclusion.
We have got a better deal, but it is relative. We've got a better deal with our with the money that we've got for our city deal. We've got a better deal in terms of the best deal that any European green capital has got from its central government. There are many ways that we have benefited from the fact that we've got a mayor who's prepared to fight for Bristol, but nevertheless, I work within certain limitations. We're the fastest growing city outside
But George,
London,
all that being said, this gap between those that haven't, and it's not just a couple of people sleeping rough in a doorway.
No,
we're talking about 20,000 people by March next year. Expected to be using food banks. A third of our children living in income-deprived households. You're saying it's the biggest challenge, and we talk about Bristol 2015 and that kind of stuff. So what are you, or your council, should I say, because you can't hold it all on you, and it has happened under your watch, but I'm not saying that you're personally responsible for it, but what are you doing to redress this balance, because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger?
Well, what we're doing is bringing jobs to the city, and jobs, that is the best way.
But low paid jobs, George? Zero hours contracts, George?
No, we brought in the living wage for everybody employed by the city. I've done that.
And what is that?
I've been doing that ever since I've been in.
What's that hourly rate, George? Do you know?
That is £7.60.
Okay.
£7.65.
And what's the minimum wage?
The minimum wage is £6.65 at the moment.
So a pound over. Okay.
Yeah. I may be wrong by five pence or so, but it's in that area.
Okay.
No, actually, the minimum wage is £6.50. I think it's less than £6.65.
Okay. So we're up to £7 for a living wage. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that it's important that the city leads the way. But my contention is that this is a central government issue, and that the minimum wage should be aligned with the living wage.
Sure.
Otherwise, you'll have the Tesco's and the low salary, the traditional low salary industries, such in the leisure industry, where you will never get people paying the living wage because of the competition issues.
Just a very quick one.
Yeah.
Bristol as a council is saying care workers here, only 6% are paid for travelling time as part of their job. These are people that are on the front line of services. Yeah. Now, to get from A to B to, see Mr. Davis or Mrs. Smith or whatever, Bristol don't pay them. Other authorities build it in. What's Bristol doing? So it's all well and good them having a living wage, but actually, if the money's been taken away from them because they're spending 25 minutes to get to a particular address to perform the care, then actually they'll end up getting lower than the minimum wage, if you understand
to be
what
honest,
I mean.
I don't know the details of that, but you tell me that. I will look into that.
Okay, that's Jude from St Andrews. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly don't know if those are care workers or not, but
okay. But if they are, is it fair? Is it fair that they should be paid to go to the jobs?
Well, it depends, because it depends whether it's a short-term job or a long-term job. None of us are paid to drive or travel to work. No.
So you start work in the morning, George, and then you go and see 5 clients that you've got to help.
That's why it depends. But what I will say is that I regard care workers the heroes of our society.
Absolutely.
And whether they're and a lot of caring is done by neighbours, by volunteers and others, and those and relations, and for free, completely for free. Okay. And they are real heroes, and I'd like to take the opportunity always to say how we value them.
Very quickly, Matthew Tosh has been on the phones. Matthew, just some quick reaction. We haven't got
quick reaction. Well, first of all, how brilliant that we've got George Ferguson live on the One Love Breakfast this morning. Jem saying really interesting discussion surrounding food banks. We've got a little bit of concern from one caller who wished to remain anonymous that George is bigging up the city, encouraging people to visit, yet we don't have an effective integrated transport system to be able to cope with all those visitors. Thought that was very interesting.
Okay.
And
agreed.
A little bit of concern about the fact that you only went on a course instead of not being a common purpose graduate. That's the reaction so far.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. I'm not going to ask you to give us any more of your comments right now because we're simply not going to have time. But thank you ever so much indeed. And we will be passing your comments on, but it won't be during this programme. Okay, George, there are loads of questions. Now, I want to pick out some of what... I'm not going to steer away from them. I've got a question about the Bristol Ferry Boat Company. Are you going to be fine to answer that? I'm going to read
Absolutely,
some of the stuff. Okay.
Yeah, because I think there's been a load of rubbish being peddled recently about the Bristol Ferry Boat Company and the ferries.
You're going to have to bear with me so I can read through this. Okay, the Bristol Ferry Boat Company collapsed, owing £661,000. You can say right or wrong. I'm just reading what I've got here. And you personally in your business lost more than a third of it, as you were one of the 3 shareholders. It names 2 others. Jane Salvage, 43%, 86,000 shares. George Ferguson, 42%, 84,000 shares. And Ian Bungard with 15%, 15,000 shares. It says, are you a fit and qualified person to manage the 1 billion turnover of the council?
Yeah. Well, I was a minority shareholder. I put money in with open eyes because I was one of the people who started the ferry company in the 70s.
Right.
And I tend to be, I know people won't understand it, but it's like I've done with the theatre. I put money into what I believe are good social enterprises, and I regard it as a social enterprise. I never expected to get the money back. So it's not an investment that failed. It's an investment, to my mind, that succeeded. And it was more money than I would, at the beginning would have chosen to put in. And I never took anything out. So what's wrong with that? But people are trying to sell that as being a negative. I see it as a real positive. I enabled the ferry company to survive, and I think it's one of the major attractions in the city.
Well, it continues here. It says that at the time you said everyone else let you down. It said you had, you were a minority in a sense of somebody had 86,000 shares and you had 84,000. But it says, why did you not tell the electorate in the run-up to the 2012 mayoral election that you crashed the company on the day we voted for the new mayor? Is that right or is that wrong? This is what the questioner is saying, who is Dave in Fishponds.
Yeah, well, I mean, conspiracy theory. I am absolutely, completely open about it. I declared my interest in the ferry. You'll find them on the register that I have no interest in the ferry and I've had none since.
Did you hide the collapse, George?
No, I didn't. Of course, I didn't. It was on the public register. You can't hide the fact. If you go to Companies House, you'll find all the details. But it was a social enterprise. It should have been really a community interest company.
Yeah.
But I was treating it as something that I think the city really needed. And I've put much more money into creating the charitable side of the tobacco factory, for instance. Okay. And, that's what I do. I know people may not understand. I take sacrifice in salary in order to do what I believe is best for the city. I'm not somebody who is driven by money. And so it is a success that now that a community interest company has bought up the ferry boats and is running it for the benefit of the people of Bristol. What's wrong with that?
All right, thank you. Make Sunday special. Waterslide Day and others was allegedly self-financing. This is Steve. But in fact, the day cost upwards of £70,000 with residential care beds at the Bush Centre being cut. You're going to get these. People are going to make comparisons.
I don't know where they got that figure from.
Libraries being sold off. Hartcliffe Young People's Club having its funding pulled by you. It's saying 39,000. Is the mayor pouring money down a vanity project pit instead of funding essential council services? We've heard this a lot. We've heard these comments a lot. Very quick answer. We've got about
nonsense. I'm investing in Bristol, and if we're to create the jobs, we're to create the economy that brings people out of poverty, we have to do these things. And it is a really backward-looking idea that I don't spend 15,000. It was not 70,000 that that was the city spent on the Waterslide Day. Much of the money was raised by crowdfunding by Luke Jerram, the artist himself. And I'm unhappy that we have to have so much in the way of security that actually was the major cost of that day.
And what is the standard? What is the standard cost of your Make Sunday Special Sundays? What would that be? The cost of the council?
The total budget for this year was £50,000, which is a really, really good investment. This goes around the world. I mean, it has had so much coverage. People come to Bristol to see what's happening.
We've hardly got any time. One of the questions that for me, I guess, I've not had a chance to ask the question I want. You talk about Bristol going around the world, and I don't deny that in terms of being an ambassador for the city and getting us talked about here, there, and everywhere, you're doing a job in that. How do you ensure that our fame across the world pushes down to those in need? This is still a tale of two cities. It's a tale of those that haven't got in Bristol and those that are struggling, our elderly, our disabled, those who are working but still can't make ends meet. How can you ensure, by something that you can do or a number of measures you can do, to make sure that everybody in the city of Bristol can enjoy this newfound fame of Bristol? What can you do?
It is what drives me, Pat. Everything I do is aimed at doing just that. It is about making quite sure that we have an economy that provides the jobs, the right jobs, that when construction is happening in the city, that apprentices are local apprentices, and I've been talking to the construction industry about that. It's making quite sure that the opportunities are there.
We're out of time.
And that we enable people to do what they need to and want to do.
You need to come back again. We've got no time to do anything else. Thanks ever so much indeed, George Ferguson. You need to be back within 3 or 4 weeks. Is that a promise?
I'm not going to promise a particular date, but I love coming in. But I get pulled and pushed in every direction, Pat. Right. And
just replace the BBC with us 1 week. It'll be great. George Ferguson, thank you very much indeed. News is next.
News Centre.